Well, it's starting to rain. It's gonna be hell here pretty quick. 4 feet of snow, and now it's gonna rain for a week. But anyway, I'm gonna have to pull the old readers out as the screen of my phone keeps getting covered in rain here, and it's making it a little impossible to hear, or making it a little impossible to read. But anyway, I'm gonna try to blast off 2 emails I received, both from ex-law enforcement. All right. And you should find them interesting. And I'm so tired now. I think it's 2 in the afternoon my time right here right now, and I am actually working on 5 o'clock in the morning is what my body's working on. I'm trying to power through it to get rid of this jet lag as fast as I can, because I can't stand it. I can't stand wasting days, and I can't stand laying around on the couch when it's daylight out. But anyway, here we go. Listen to this one, okay? Hi, Steve. I'm now 71 years old, and my sighting happened when I was 49 in 1997. I am a former law enforcement officer with over 15 years experience, so I'm not easily rattled. Also, I've been hunting and fishing since age of 6, when my father deemed that I was old enough to join him when he fished and hunted in northern Utah. I want to preface this story by saying that I've been a science fiction fan since I was in middle school, so I believe this contributed to my being able to keep an open mind concerning the subject. In late summer 1997, I'd be going to the Jar Bridge Wilderness Area in northeastern Nevada, scouting prior to that year's deer season. The area is dense pine and cedar forest that limits visibility in most areas to just a few hundred feet at best. I was walking down an old overgrown service road that curved to the east, my left, just a few dozen feet ahead of me. As I rounded the bend in the road, I looked up and saw one of these beings standing in the road facing me. It started to go back into the trees, but for some reason it stopped and watched me to see what I was going to do. This was the second time that I'd seen one of these creatures, but by far the closest. I stopped and can only say that while I was anxious, I wasn't really frightened. It was like seeing a unicorn. The sight of one of these beings filled me with wonder. I never felt as though I was in any danger at all, but only feeling curiosity. I think that it sensed that I meant it no harm. He was about 7 feet tall and was almost as wide as it was tall. I'd estimate that his shoulders were easily 4 feet wide, and it was heavily muscled. It was covered with reddish-brown hair, except on its face and chest. It looked like it had no neck, but I think the hair on its head was long enough that it draped over its shoulders and contributed to this effect. Its face was broad and somewhat flat. The eyes were very dark with hooded brows. Its nose was wide, and its mouth was wide, with full lips. When it opened its mouth, I could see that it had teeth that were square rather than sharp, and pointed like the classic predator. The teeth were quite yellowish and a bit stained. It obviously hadn't brushed in a while. Its arms were very muscular and really long, reaching as far as its knees. We stood like this for close to a minute, just taking one another in. He finally lifted his head to the side as to say, "Now what?" I said, "It's nice to meet you," and he gave a soft grunt in reply. He turned and walked into the trees and began walking away, so I turned and began backtracking along the trail and back to my truck. While I walked, I could hear him walking parallel to my direction of travel. I stopped to hear him walk, and he also stopped. I could tell he was watching me. I took off my pack and reached inside for a banana that I was saving for my lunch. I put it on a large rock near the edge of the trail, turned, and began walking again. I noticed that I could no longer hear his footsteps, so I turned and saw him just as he was picking up the banana and sniffing it. He put it in his mouth and ate it without peeling it open. How would he have known to do that? I walked back to my truck and never saw him again. When I thought about telling my wife about this, I believed that she would think I was crazy, so I decided not to mention it at all. Go figure. I've read other stories of Bigfoot encounters that turned out to be scary or terrifying. My encounter was just the opposite. I wondered if it had ever seen a human up close. I was never frightened, but I was a bit anxious. Having seen this thing up close, I have to say that it was not a wild animal. It was not an ape or a big monkey. This was an intelligent being, and killing one of these would be a true crime. These TV Bigfoot shows, they're all about running around in the dark and smacking trees and sticks and making a big show of their night vision cameras. Amazingly, they never seem to see a Bigfoot, no matter what they do. I wonder why. It seems to me that if they really want to come face to face with the Bigfoot, they should go out in broad daylight, but that wouldn't be very good drama, which is what they're all about. If they saw one like I did, they'd probably shit themselves. Now that would be must-see TV. Steve Garrison. Well, thank you, Mr. Garrison. That's quite the experience and quite the sight you got to see. Crazy. Thankfully, it wasn't a terrifying experience, and There is a lot of experiences out there. A lot of emails come in where the experience wasn't terrifying. But sadly, on the other hand, there are just as many that come in that are absolutely terrifying. So, and that's another factor we got to throw in for why I'm here delivering these emails to everybody and sharing all this shit. So everybody that has a terrifying encounter and there's nowhere to go and nowhere to talk to can listen to us talking about it here freely. Holy crap, I'm freaking tired. But there's another one here we're going to try to get out right now as well from another past law enforcement officer. Okay, ready? Here's another one. Steve, my name is Steve Shackelford. I'm a 63-year-old retired police officer. I've been a hunter and a trapper for most of my life. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. My first encounter was something that I cannot explain happened while coyote hunting one night. I had parked my truck along a road and hiked down through the wooded creek valley to a clearing on the plateau on the other side of the creek where I had often had successful hunting. This particular evening, I had no success in calling any coyotes, so I decided to return to my truck and get to another spot. I entered the woods and was about halfway down the slope to the creek when I heard a very deep guttural growl from the direction of the plateau behind me. I froze in my tracks and listened intently. I turned and shined my hunting light up the slope with my 12-gauge shotgun at the ready. I saw nothing. I heard nothing. That said, I suddenly was overcome with a deep fear that bordered upon panic. It was some instinct from my gut. Something was there that should not be there was the feeling that I had. I turned and started down the slope again, and once more that overwhelming fear took over, and I stopped and searched the woods behind me. Nothing. This continued all the way down the slope to the creek. I would move 5 or 6 feet and stop, frozen in fear. When finally I made the creek and crossed it, I ran like a sprinter up the steep hill to where my truck was parked. All I can say was I heard the growl and was seized with a fear that I'd never before experienced. As I mentioned, I've been a trapper since I was a teenager, and I've been in a lot of places in the dark alone. Deep woods, swamps, just about any kind of terrain, and I was never scared to be alone in the dark. Let me add, there are no bears or cougars around where I live. The next encounter was years later, and this one was a visual. My son and I were driving down a road about a mile from our home around dusk on a drizzly November evening. As we were driving past a field that bordered a swamp, I looked over at the field with hunter's eye and saw something that had me immediately hitting the brake. At the same moment that I hit the brake, my son, who was in his early 20s at the time, exclaimed, "What the hell is that?" What we saw was a figure, about 8 to 9 feet in height, walking across the field in huge strides. It looked all black in the dusk, had a pointed head, long arms. As I braked, my truck skidded down the road and was out of sight of the figure. I threw it in reverse and backed up to where I'd seen the thing, and it was gone. I would have had covered at least 150 yards in something like 15 seconds to make the nearest timber. The next encounters were tracks and structures. These were found in the winter and summer along Charles C. Dean Wilderness Area in southern Indiana in the Hoosier National Forest, which is around 13,000 acres in size. I have enclosed photos of the tracks and the structures. I will add that these tracks and structures were found while off hiking by GPS in the deep woods. I'm confident they are genuine because of where they were found. If faked, their being found would have been akin to being hit by lightning. I mean, there is no reason for anyone to arbitrarily being in these locations. They were far off any established hiking trails. I'll finish by saying these things have changed me. While I still hunt, I will not go to my stand until there is seeing light. No more hiking in the dark for woods for me. I have become apprehensive about the outdoors after dark. Steve Shackelford, Indiana. P.S. If you ever use this, feel free to use my name. Here comes another damn helicopter, if you can hear that in the background. But anyway, Mr. Shackelford, thank you very much for sharing your experience, and especially, I will add in, thank you very much for using your name. That really says a lot, and it helps a lot of people come forward and be more accepting of these stories and these encounters and what they have experienced. What do you say to that one? You know, it's another classic experience, one of thousands and thousands. Like I said, like I mentioned earlier, I find it's very encouraging to be receiving so many emails now with so many people adding in to go ahead and use their names. That's a very, very, very big thing. And it's also proof that things are turning around, right? But anyway, there you go. There's a couple stories from ex-law enforcement officers who passed on experiences for all you to hear and possibly relate to. And I'm telling you what, I am fading right now. I gotta go home. I gotta go home and cook up some healthy food and get some good sleep. It's yeah, it's 5 o'clock. I feel like I've been up all night long and it's 5 in the morning. It's time to go to bed. But in reality, it's about 3 in the afternoon. I'm gonna get my butt out of here and go home and throw down one of these stories on the tube for all you to hear, and then continue on getting all of my numerous projects knocked off. So many things to do. I got a couple. I just got so many things to do. It's ridiculous. But hopefully I'm going to get that podcast launched this week. And that thing's going to be full of a pile of good, solid information. And no celebrities. It's kind of funny, you know. I guess one. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. Do with those stories what you will. Take them for what they are, and I'll be back to share more with you guys shortly.